What's up? Welcome to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the 15th and final DC Extended Universe film. As we know, DC at Warner Bros. Discovery is ending their previous film continuity. James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DCEU vision kicking off in earnest in 2025 with Superman Legacy. Aquaman 2 is the last of four DCEU kind of holdover films that kind of got released in limbo with this plan already in motion. WB just kind of had to get these movies out and they were moving on, and we kind of knew it. And as a result, these movies have disappointed at the box office, partially because they haven't been very good almost consistently, and also because there's no audience investment in these stories because we know we're throwing all of this away. So Aquaman 2, I think, was held up coming in as something with perhaps a bit more potential, I suppose, than, say, Shazam 2 or The Flash or Blue Beetle, just because Aquaman 1 was relatively well received when it came out at the end of 2018, and also happens to be the highest grossing DC Comics film ever with $1.15 billion, And, it's been 5 years since the most successful DC movie finally gets its sequel, very on brand for how DC has gone. And unfortunately, Aquaman 2 is a big step back from its predecessor, just like Shazam 2 was, just like Wonder Woman 1984 was. Aquaman The Lost Kingdom really, to me, just feels like a pretty sloppy film. Like, it's just kind of a mess, and it's self-contained, which is nice. It actually kind of has a conclusive-ish ending to the Aquaman story, but really doesn't rise above the formula in any way, and I think is visually less interesting than the first movie, which at least had pretty fun and compelling underwater CGI visuals. That is less true to right now with Aquaman 2 somehow, and yeah, it's just not really that compelling. Honestly, for a 2-hour movie, I thought it dragged. I thought it was a bit slow, and I think just the central conflict of the movie just is really half-baked and uninteresting. And I'm kind of happy that the DCEU is just being wiped away because these movies have not been consistent enough. And frankly, we're on the strength of 5 duds in a row for the most part, because we can go back to the last movie of 2022, Black Adam, certainly adds to the trend. I actually enjoyed The Flash for what it was. And I think that's the strongest DC movie we got this year. Aquaman 2, I actually think is probably the worst of them all. And yeah, let's kind of get into why that is. I think, we knew this movie was recut. We knew this movie was going through some troubles. At one point, we were going to see Ben Affleck's Batman. At one point, it was actually going to be Michael Keaton's Batman. Turns out you get no Batman, which I think was probably for the best. But there was reports that Amber Heard's Mira was cut. There was a scene of her fighting Black Manta. There was a kind of love scene with Aquaman. Those scenes are cut, not in the movie. Overall, Mira is largely sidelined, which has been a huge talking point given everything that has happened with Amber Heard in the public eye in terms of the lawsuit with Johnny Depp, of course. So you have that baggage coming into it, and yeah, I think if there's one strength to Aquaman 2, it's probably the kind of buddy cop stuff we get, like, at times between Arthur Curry, Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa, and his half-brother, Orm, played by Patrick Wilson. When they're together, they're actually pretty fun chemistry. It's a complete riff of, like, the Thor-Loki brotherly dynamic, the villainous brother turned ally. So obvious, in fact, that Aquaman actually calls Orm Loki at one point in the movie. And they're actually pretty amusing together, and I think Patrick Wilson's like self-seriousness in the Orm role is pretty fun. The issue is that the conflict with this is just really tough, man. Like, we get Yahya Abdul-Mateen back as Black Manta. He kind of escapes at the end of the first movie, helped by the scientist character played by Randall Park, and those two together actually pick back up with them in the very beginning of Aquaman 2. And before we know it, Black Manta is consumed by this, magical demonic trident from the titular Lost Kingdom that's been locked away, for reasons. Don't have to get into the details there. And as a result, like all agency that Black Manta could have had as someone who hates Aquaman for killing his father in the first movie, all that's sapped away because Black Manta just basically becomes possessed by this ancient evil. And it kind of sucks because like that like motivation is so hard to grasp because it seems like he's possessed but not fully possessed. And as a result, what he's going to do is he's going to steal all these ancient fuels from ancient Atlantis and burn them up to affect climate change. But why is he doing that? Like he's going to destroy the whole world just to get back at Aquaman? Like that whole like part of the conflict I found really confusing. And it gets to this point where you realize there's like 30 minutes left in the movie and we just heard the phrase "the Lost Kingdom" said in the movie. And then we actually go to this underwater, like under Antarctica, like locked away Seventh Kingdom of Atlantis. And we get like some incredibly obvious like Lord of the Rings like visage where like the ancient Lost Kingdom, Necris Kingdom king looks exactly like Sauron, but the way he's actually been communicating with Black Manta throughout the movie, very reminiscent of the Men Under the Mountains ghosts from Lord of the Rings, even though it kind of looks like Sauron, someone else from Lord of the Rings, and it's like, what the fuck? And then when we get to Necris, it's like just like fucking Mordor, and I was brought back to Lord of the Rings a lot somehow. Wasn't expecting that, and I was like so thankful that the evil leader of Necris doesn't actually get fully resurrected. He gets killed very quickly at the very end. Because I was like, man, we just don't have time. Like the movie was dragging. I just need the movie to end at that point. But like, it's just such an uncompelling conflict, and I think Manta is really just kind of lackluster as an antagonist. To be honest, the sonic weapon stuff I guess was cool, I suppose, but we spend so much time above ground again, like the first Aquaman. The first Aquaman somehow, for having so much CG, the CG for the above ground stuff when they go find the old kingdom, buried beneath the Sahara, and you're watching Amber Heard and Jason Momoa run out in the desert, that was the shit that looked worse than all the underwater, completely unreal imagery, right? It's kind of the same case once again. It's just that the underwater stuff doesn't even look as good this time. But we spend all this time with Orm getting busted out of prison once again in the desert. That's a set piece that's like, it's like broadly amusing, but it's kind of repetitive, doesn't really build up to too much. I thought it was just okay. And then I think slightly better is when they're kind of like in the jungle, like island setting, and they find all these like gigantism affected flora and fauna, and they're running away from like giant bugs and stuff and carnivorous plants. That was at least a bit more interesting to me. But I really would love if like these movies were somehow like able to really capture the underwater stuff. Like heck, I think like the brief underwater moments you got in like Justice League, Snyder's Justice League, that stuff I actually thought looked pretty good. But this is just like, I don't know, it's kind of flat. And like there's some like cool like kind of like horror-y moments like early on when there's that like tentacle that's like going after Randall Park. Like, and shout out to James Wan, he's horror bona fides. He can pull that kind of stuff off. But overall, it's just kind of a really lackluster story, and the conflict is just really lackluster. And like the stuff with Momoa and Aquaman and Mira having a child who they don't even give a name to, like it's just kind of tacked on. It's like not, I don't know, it just doesn't feel that special. And yeah, like Orm getting his redemption, like that's earned. That's nice overall. But like, I don't know, it just kind of suffered from a lack of imagination to me. And the middle of the movie like really struggles, I'd say. And yeah, kind of DCEU kind of going out on a whimper. But this was a lame duck movie, like the last ones before it. So it is what it is, I guess. And yeah, that's it for Momoa's Aquaman. I thought overall he was pretty good for a while. He's one of the lightest and I think most dependable aspects of the DCEU from his various appearances. But overall, this has been a very troubled time, as we've talked about at length. And I'm looking forward to the reset. As far as Momoa potentially returning to DC in the future, he's reportedly been in talks about portraying Lobo. I'm open to the idea. I don't know. Like, I enjoy Momoa when he's good, and I think he was actually pretty good in Fast X this year as the villain Dante. I liked him quite a bit. Um, Aquaman, I don't know. He felt like he was kind of like overly aloof, and especially in this second one. So and on the other hand, though, think about his role in Dune. I thought he's absolutely tremendous. Like there's a really like awesome like action performer in Jason Momoa when he's doing it right. So I think him doing Lobo could have great return as long as he's able to differentiate it from his portrayal as Aquaman. So I'm open to it. We'll see. I don't expect that to be anytime soon. That in a movie with Lobo or anything like that. So yeah, Aquaman 2 kind of stinks. Honestly, it's one of the worst DCEU movies. It is what it is. And I'm kind of happy for the break. We know next year we'll get Joker Part 2 at the very end of the year, and HBO will be releasing the Penguin spin-off series off of the Matt Reeves Batman film. That still has to finish some filming post-strikes, but we should be getting that next year. And then 2025, Superman Legacy from James Gunn, and also Batman Part 2 with Reeves and Pattinson. So won't be too long for DC, but I think a break with just one movie next year is probably be helpful for the reset, helpful for the comic book genre to help reset. Obviously, Marvel's going through a tough time too, as we've been talking about. So yeah, we're moving on. But let me know, how'd you feel about Aquaman 2? Did you like it more than me? Let me know why. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.